NSW-ish. What's the scariest you've ever acted towards another human being? I have a group of friends who are touring musicians. They would stay with my husband and I when they came through our town. Apparently they acquired a stalker along the way that followed them through Europe and continued to do so through their US leg. She had apparently left her husband and family to do this. She had gotten really violent and would attack the main guy that she was obsessed with. They had left her picture with the door guy so they would know not to let her in. They had taken out a restraining order in San Francisco but couldn't get it served. Some weird time limit laws. I go out front of the bar to have a smoke and I see her dancing up the street. She's wearing gypsy type clothing and sunglasses at night. Great. As I mentioned before, they are staying with us and she is now at the venue. I tried to talk to her and asked her why she was doing this. She just kept repeating I'm in the band. That was the only thing she would say to me. She got real close to the door and the door guy wasn't being very observant. I could see this going south pretty quickly so I called the cops and told them the situation. Once they arrived, they talked to her but couldn't really do anything. They told her to stay on the other side of the street from the bar. The guys finish their set and they are loading up. Well, guess who shows back up and starts walking towards the van? I cut her off before she could get there and stood in front of her. I told her, I think you should go now very softly. She started blabbing the I'm in the band line again and I became infuriated. Jager probably had something to do with this. I really didn't want this crazy bee to know where we lived, nor did I want to go to jail for hitting her. My brain shrieked you must out crazy her. Lick her face, so I grabbed her face in one hand and licked her from her chin to her forehead while she was in mid-sentence. I once again quietly said, you should go, and pushed her away. She ran and we weren't bothered again that evening. The guys thought it was hilarious. TLDR. Out crazy the stalker by licking her face from chin to forehead. Out crazing someone is the only way to go. I remember some boyfriend comes up, pushes me back screaming you're a freaking dead man because I was talking to his girl. Well, I didn't know you dong, so what do? I proceed to dance around him, stare him down while saying want to dance mother. Got a laugh. He ended up buying me a drink. Long ago I was a teenager and hanging with my friend at my favorite park. The park has a railway bridge about 40-50 feet above a shallow creek with a lot of large nasty rocks. Unfortunately it was known for having a few jumpers. My friend and I were by one end of the bridge, sitting on the embankment, when a teen girl walks up. As it was late night, we were wearing all black, as I said teenager, and we quieted up when she walked up. She didn't notice us. She walked up to the end of the bridge and just kept staring down in a way that made me think she was debating jumping. I motioned to my friend and we walked up quietly behind her. Long way down, isn't it? I said, from right behind her. She turned around startled and I just went on, looking down, with a 100-mile stare. The worst part is halfway down you realize, oh god, I don't want this, but it's too late and you hit the bottom and then you hit and feel the agony of your body against the rocks for what seems forever. She turns back and looks down, and while she's looking away I grab my friend and we jump back down onto the embankment. So we're just a few feet away, but because of the darkness, the black clothing, and the steep angle, she doesn't see us when she turns back. She looks around frantically for a while and then just runs away. TLDR. I either stopped a suicide or scared the heck out of an innocent girl for no reason. The important thing, however, is that I amused myself. God, I hope this is real. I had just left my apartment to walk over to my buddy's place. I pulled out a pack of cigarettes and went to light up, and there were these two guys around 18 or so just walk over and demand my pack. Now if they would have just said something like, hey mate, got a spare one, I probably would have given him one. But he tried to snatch my pack out of my jacket pocket, and as I tried to stop him he said to his buddy get his wallet, and I just freaking lost it. I grabbed this guy's shirt and just punched him as hard as I could in the nose and mouth a few times. He falls over backwards and starts actually crying. Like, he's 7 and skinned his knee. It was embarrassing and kinda made me feel bad, but that's what happens when you rob a stranger. They break your nose. His friend called me the psycho. Good times. In high school, I was a shy, quiet outcast that didn't really talk to anyone. A group of girls in my choir class decided that they hated me and always tried to pick on me any chance they got. One time I was entering the restroom as one girl was walking out, and she deliberately jabbed her pencil-thin heel into my ankle as she went to walk past. "Watch where you're freaking going, B," she said. She went to exit the restroom and I slammed the door full force into her back, causing her to fall onto her face and make her drop and scatter all her crap all over the hallway. "Learn how to walk in those heels, B," I retorted. She tried to beat me up later, but I pulled her hair extensions out before anything happened and made her friends laugh at her. Oh, high school. There's a line where a woman deserves to have someone frick her weave up, and she totally crossed it. I typed in all caps at a stranger on the internet once, but really, the scariest I've ever been was when I was about 7 or 8. This kid who used to bully me, named Dylan, was showing off his new baseball bat. He decided to pick up a rock and hit it like he would hit a baseball. It flies across the street, hitting my 2-year-old sister in the neck. I tackled Dylan and started choking him. His friends pulled me off, but before they could get me completely off I kicked Dylan in the face, breaking his nose. I have never been so angry, before or since. My sister had to go to the hospital and get several stitches, but she was alright in the end. I was on my motorcycle a few weeks back, when this soccer mom in her minivan pushed me off the road into a ditch. She saw what she did after, shrugged it off and kept driving. Saw her through her side mirror. B looked right at me as I struggled to keep the bike up. I pull myself together and get back on the road. 2-3 minutes later, I get caught back up to her and she is still talking on her freaking phone. Insert rage face here. I pass her and give her the bird. About 30 seconds later, I come to a stop sign. B nearly rear ends me and skids. Still talking on her phone. Something someone said on the other end of the line made her laugh. This sent me over the edge. I kicked down my side stand, hop off my bike, and walk up to her window. At a 4-way stop sign, mind you, cars on every side. She rolls down her window and tells the person on the other line to hold on a second, proceeds to tell me, "WTF are you doing? You are holding up traffic." I lost it. I reached into her window, grabbed her pretty iPhone and the pink case out of her hand, throw it as hard as I can at her front window, smashing it, and the phone in the process. Calmly walk back to my bike and proceed on with my day. I was on my way home from work when I received a garbled text from my GF. I texted back and didn't get an answer, so proceeded home like nothing had been sent and just figured she was drunk. When I arrived home there was no one around, and after making myself dinner I called her and asked where she was. She was drunk and accused me of cheating on her, so I hung up. I went to bed, and a little later that night I awoke to her standing next to the bed shouting thing like, "You think you're going to get away with this?" My eyes adjusted and I saw that she had a knife and was beyond pee off. She swung the knife at my face as I rolled away and then I totally lost it. I don't remember everything clearly, but I know I decked her straight in the mouth and knocked her to the floor. She cut my foot pretty bad as I proceeded to try to get away. She ran after me with the knife and I punched her again, this time getting cut on my arm as she fell and passed out from the blow. When she woke up I had the knife and had called the police. I sat on her chest with the knife to her face and promised, "I'll end your freaking miserable existence if you try to manipulate this." I've called, we'll call him Joe, and given him the address to your son's school and your mom's address. So if you expect me to go to jail because you're crazy, I'll have them taken care of. Needless to say, I scared the crap out of myself with that comment, even though I never called Joe nor told him anything. I've never hit a woman before, but I feel that was justified and so did the police, but I've never seen that side of me and hope I never have to again. BTW, she was an awesome GF up to this point and have no idea what the heck happened. I talked to her once to give her the key and that was it. I got the frick out of there fast. The police took her away but decided there wasn't much more they could charge her with than assault a deadly weapon. It cycled through the courts and she got a good layer. In the end she got 2 years of probation. I feel you, brother. Had to subdue a crazy GF that came at me with a knife. Sat on her chest for a few hours while she's screaming and trying to bite me. Schizophrenia is a horrible thing. Saddest night of my life. I was 7 or 8 years old, and I was walking home from school with my friend Laura. Laura was from Vietnam. She and her family had recently moved here. I was a pretty reserved, quiet, nerdy kid, so Laura and I kinda stuck together. A block or two after we left school, I got the feeling we were being followed. A few minutes later, these two popular 5th grade girls came up behind us and started taunting Laura. They were pulling their eyelids to make them squinty and yelling crap like, "Ching chong ching, go back to your country." This made Laura cry really hard. Seeing her so upset made something inside of me snap. It was the angriest I think I've ever been in my entire life, and I'm 21 now. I don't remember exactly what happened right after that, but I remember getting calm and looking down at one of the 5th graders. She was screaming and crying and her entire face was covered with blood. I think 1 or 2 teeth were missing. I'm also pretty sure she had to go to the hospital. From that point on, no one ever messed with Laura again. We didn't really stay friends through middle school and beyond, but I heard she's working on her master's degree at the moment. TLDR. Blacked out from anger and beat the crap out of another kid when I was in 2nd grade. God dang it, Bobby. When I was in 4th grade, I remember being at my friend's house and getting so irritated with her that I took duct tape and wrapped it around her head about 4 times. I'm talking around her hair, everything. I just totally lost it. I couldn't even believe I had done it. Most of these stories are kinda terrifying, threatening, but mine is more along the scary lines. I was part of a haunted house. I was hiding in the spider cave part, where they entered, and there was a constant strobe light. I was wearing all black except for a ghoulish mask. I hid behind the flat that was near the entrance, so I could come out behind them once they were inside. I had lots of good scares that night, many involving touching people, and then when they whipped around to look, they couldn't really see me. The strobe light threw them off, even though I was standing right there. But what follows is my favorite, and why I think strobe lights are freaky. A couple comes through. The husband is leading. Now, there is something at the end of the spider cave. It is a large spider on a hydraulic thing that comes down from the ceiling. Someone is waiting, hiding, and presses the button when someone is underneath. It scares the pee out of people. So this couple gets separated because the spider scares the woman back. So she's stuck, scared that the spider will come back down again, kinda calling to her husband, who doesn't want to come back. So now's my chance. I dart out and sit still, with the gaps in the strobe. It looks like I just appeared, crouching on the ground. She turns and notices me, and jumps, kinda half amused. She turns back to her husband to point it out, like people who are pretending to be not scared in haunted houses do. When she turns back, I am 4 feet closer, in the same position, looking as though I just appeared thanks to the strobes. She is really frightened now, jumps and screams, and hightails it out of my domain. TLDR. My teleporting abilities are much more terrifying than large spiders. This is absolutely fantastic. I would literally have screamed like a little girl. I am not a little girl. When I was in 8th grade, I got in an after-school snowball fight with 2 6th grade brothers who did not get along with me. Things escalated a little quickly and one of the kids jumped on my back trying to choke me. I grabbed him by the hair and pulled him over my shoulder and threw him on his back and immediately planted my fist on his face. That ended the fight, but a few minutes later they come back with their babysitter who proceeds to yell at me about how much trouble I'm about to get in. Frick, that says 8th grade me. I returned to the school, put on my best innocent crying face and tell the principal that the kids had jumped me, and when I threw him off he hit his face on a rock and how guilty I was. Long story a little shorter, the kid's mom ends up believing my story over her little craps and makes me cookies as retribution. The look on this kid's swollen face when he handed me a tin of cookies the next day will always stay with me. TLDR. Punched younger kid in the face. His mom makes me cookies. He spit in the cookies. A part of him is new now. Before I start, let me say that I am 5 feet 9 inches, around 140 pounds, and I am more in touch with my femside than most guys at my college. Anyways, about a week into my freshman year, I started getting kind of verbally harassed by a bunch of the jocks. I let it go for a while. I was happy with who I was and really didn't give a frick. Eventually, though, it got too much to bear, especially when I had a boyfriend and they started going after him. One night while I was walking about, 4 of them saw me and started yelling some stupid crap. Insert gay slurs here. If it had been about me I wouldn't have given a frick, but talking crap about my guy was crossing the line. I walked straight up to them and told them to frick off, and they tried to walk over me and keep laughing, but in the scariest, psycho bitchest voice I could, I said, listen to me when I'm fricking talking to you, you fricking see. I was wearing a ring with a largish stone, so when I backhand slapped the leader on the word C it tore a chunk out of his face. I put my entire 140 pounds and all my rage into it. He stood there bleeding and aghast. I said that's right, B, and walked away, and they haven't bothered us since. TLDR. Tiny flaming homo pimp slapped a wrestler. Came for the justice, stayed for the TLDR. When my son was about 2 months old, I was driving home from getting a few groceries. A girl who looked about 17 or 18 ran a red light and almost hit the side of my car. My son's car seat was on. I ended up turning my car around to follow her. She pulled over about 5 minutes after I began following her. I got out of my car and walked over to her. Hey, you really need to be more careful driving. You almost hit me. So my newborn son is in my car. You almost hit us. That could have killed him. I don't care. I had never punched someone out of anger before that and I never have since. I don't even know where it all came from. I'm female, relatively small, and generally a passive person. She got a bloody nose and cried. It's ironic that I'm posting this immediately after a comment about how serious an offense assault is. The stupidest and scariest thing I ever did was for my boss. She had been stalked by this guy for a while. This can happen when you work retail, but he was going all out. He was following her to bars, etc. She was pretty terrified, and then he went off and applied to work at the store. Clearly, she wasn't going to hire him, but I asked for the number. I called him up and told him I was the RM and wanted to give him an interview. He came in, I clocked out. I went to the back and took a long waterfall hanger, those long ones with the heavy ribs to hold t-shirts on, and shoved it up my sleeve. When we got outside I told him she was my girlfriend. He said this was cool, but I told him that no it wasn't, because I knew he'd been following her. I shoved him against the wall and told him if he so much as looked at her again or tried to breathe the same air as her again, I would make the hanger his new boyfriend. He just sort of nodded, terrified. I told him to leave, and when he walked off, I shouted that he wasn't going fast enough. Also, I'm a girl. Not quite as exciting as most of the stories here, but about a year ago I was in a Nick subway station late at night. It was empty except for one guy. When I came down the stairs I saw the guy standing there with his back to me, so being a drop tipsy I decided to sneak up behind him while he was playing on his phone. I got right up behind him, somehow got my mouth right next to his ear without him noticing, and whispered menacingly, "You think nobody knows, but I do." Dude dropped his phone and went more pale than anyone I've ever seen. I've seen a dead body that wasn't as pale as this guy. I somehow caught the phone, handed it back to him, shook my head slowly in mock disgust, and walked to the other end of the platform. That guy didn't take his eyes off me until I got off the train a few stops later. This thread gave me several reasons to never ever go to where I did meet up. I had to deliver a speech for English class a few years back. School shootings and the perspective of the shooter wasn't the greatest idea I've ever had. I once slapped my sister in the face with a piece of toast because she changed the channel whilst I was watching Dragon Ball Z. Edit, yes it was the buttered side. You did the right thing. Freshman year of high school, I was a short, stocky kid. Some kid in the hallway would make sectarian comments to me every day, weren't even funny either. One day he found out that my dad was passed away and made a joke about it. I calmly walked into class, put my backpack down, stepped out and walked within 2 inches of his chest and had to look a foot straight up to see his face. I'll repeat the dialogue closest to verbatim from memory. Taylor fricking Johnson, I think you've been bothering a lot of fricking people because your C of A self couldn't wean himself off his dad's dong as a kid. Needless to say, you stupid fricking C, sit the frick down and apologize or I swear to every fricking stepfather you've had I'll make sure all the witnesses here will have a story to tell their grandkids. At this point 2 teachers stepped out and were preparing to intervene. He sat the frick down and said sorry. I've never yelled that loud or ever truly put that much angst into words before or since then. I realized that day when the happy, calm kid flips a bee, it scares people a lot more than they thought. You have been visited by the money bird. It'll bring you good fortune, but only if you subscribe in 42 seconds or less. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.